The action-adventure TV series Human Target debuted on the Fox network on January 15, 2010, running for 2 seasons with a total of 25 episodes. Developed with high aspirations, Season 1 of the DC Comics adapted series would excel, featuring action-packed scenarios each week, while its character-centric lore expanded in the background. An exceedingly impressive and well-reviewed yet expensive first season led to network meddling and a ratings fall-off that resulted in an unfortunate end of this promising series, a series that I felt was the best action-centric primetime show on TV at the time. The character of Christopher Chance, the titular Human Target, was created for DC Comics by artist Carmine Infantino and writer Len Wein, debuting Action Comics number 419 in December of 1972. Wein would later put his internal stamp on comics by co-creating Swamp Thing for DC Comics, and Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Storm and Colossus for the X-Men for Marvel Comics. Chance was a bodyguard and master of disguise, assuming the identities of his clients to remove them from danger when targeted by lethal threats. The character would be seen fairly regularly in Batman, Superman, and other comics that have limited series runs in the 1990s, 2000s, and a recent acclaimed Tom Kingpin run from 2021 to 2023. With an interesting espionage and action-centric concept, it definitely had potential to leap off the comic book pages into other mediums. Although the Mark Valley-led series was not the first time Christopher Chance was brought to television. In 1992, actor and rock musician Rick Springfield led a 7-episode series on the ABC network. It oddly ran from July 20th to August 29th at a time when the summer was filled mostly with reruns from the major networks. Springfield's version leaned heavily into sci-fi with a high-tech jet command center and elaborate masks to place Chance as a decoy to protect his charges. However, fairly bad visual effects, low ratings, and poor reviews citing Springfield as unrealistic as a Vietnam War Special Forces vet ultimately tanked it. The detriment in going with the exact comic book concept is that it relies on guest stars to portray Chance in disguise instead of putting your lead actor center stage for the entire episode. The episodes for this iteration of Human Target all appear to be available here on YouTube, albeit in fairly low quality. To my knowledge, the series has never gotten an official home video release. 18 years later, Human Target would get another opportunity being developed for TV by Jericho and Black Sails creator Jonathan E. Steinberg. Gone now is the Master of Disguise, but instead Chance is a security specialist based out of San Francisco who assumes the cover to put himself near his client, allowing them to appear vulnerable to expose and then eliminate the threat against them. Seasoned actor and former U.S. Army Desert Storm veteran Mark Valley was cast in the lead role. Chance is aided by business partner and ex-SFPD detective Laverne Winston, portrayed by the evergreen Shy McBride, and the ex-assassin with shady underworld contacts Guerrero, portrayed by Jackie Earle Haley. Chance's past is shrouded in mystery as it's slowly peeled back in each episode, teasing who he is, what he used to be, and how he became who he is now. Meanwhile, interesting adversaries and allies come out of the woodwork to illuminate his past. Steinberg's ambition with this series was to make it feel like a big-budget action film every week, with large-scale action set pieces, high-end fight choreography, and a large canvas to set the action across. His trifecta of action films used to pitch the idea were Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, and Raiders of the Lost Ark. These influences would shine through in the layered characterization of Christopher Chance, the smart use of humor alongside the action, and the scale of the orchestral score employed, intending to avoid the typical needle-drop soundtracks of most primetime action series. Now, production took place in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, with the versatile location doubling for numerous American and international locations, as it typically does. The pilot would be directed by Con Air and Laura Croft Tomb Raider Helmer's Simon West, and shot over 15 days, with subsequent episodes having only 8 days of production. Human Target would later employ Passenger 57 and Black Dog director Kevin Hooks, and stuntman turned director Craig R. Baxley of Action Jackson, Stone Cold, and I Come in Peace fame. Now, the show's pilot premiered on Sunday, January 17, 2010 in the United States, grabbing solid ratings with 10.12 million viewers. Its follow-up episode, airing only 3 days later on the show's regular night of Wednesday, edged it out with 10.46 million viewers. Yet the show would soon settle in between 7 to 9 million viewers per episode throughout its 12-episode season 1 run, for an average of 8.26 million viewers per episode. For context, one of Fox's biggest hit series, Bones, would average about 10 million viewers around this time, near the height of its popularity, and Human Target would easily outperform Fox's cult sci-fi series Fringe in the ratings, but Fringe would run for 5 seasons and 100 episodes. Human Target would only last for a quarter of that. Now in the pilot, Chance works to protect Stephanie Hobbs, the designer of California's first bullet train, from contract killers, with a motive that's more than it appears to be. The episode shows off Mark Valley's charisma and charm, along with his action-capable abilities, while setting up the players and the premise well. The action sequences are executed with inventiveness and theatrical blockbuster flair, putting the time and money up on the screen to make a strong first impression. However, as I did then, and even now, I find that the second episode, Rewind, was even stronger. Chance is hired by a cybersecurity executive to identify and protect a hacker named Casper on board a commercial airliner. Casper has discovered a skeleton key to the internet that will unlock all online privacy, and is now in danger because of it. All the while, Chance and Winston weed out a pair of assassins and try to prevent the plane from crashing due to an onboard fire. In order to do so, Chance has to flip the plane to allow the upward wind gusts to extinguish the fire, but then can't flip the plane back because the onboard computer has crashed. The story is told starting with Chance taking over the flight controls amidst the crisis, and flashing back to the start of the job as plot points gradually intersect, adding to the urgency and escalation of threats. Mixed with some good effects for the time, exciting plot turns, and inventive action beats, this is a richly satisfying concept executed exceptionally well. The first season delivers consistently strong episodes with mixes of espionage, political intrigue, organized crime, treasure hunts, and various other concepts that keep Chance jumping headlong into fresh scenarios each week. Yet two of my favorite episodes come mid-season. First is Salvage or Reclamation, guest starring Sons of Anarchy's Kim Coates as Bertram, a modern-day pirate and fence, searching for $40 million in gold bars, hidden in the South American wilderness. Chance is called in by Old Flame Maria to rescue Doug Slocum, a patron of her bar, who has the map to find the downed plane holding the treasure. Yet ulterior motives twist the plot around, as Chance and Maria hash out why he left her high and dry a decade ago. Meanwhile, Coates plays his role with a sophisticated intimidation and memorable screen presence, playing well off of Mark Valley in a game of wits. It's only a shame that Bertram never makes a return appearance, but Maria eventually does. The episode hits off a great adventure through the jungle for Chance, with a humorous makeshift escape from Winston and Guerrero aboard a clunky cargo plane. It's a very memorable ride, fueled with all the right elements of urgent danger, fun romance, and smart action. Now the following episode, Baptiste, has The Walking Dead's Lenny James guest starring as a titular villain, who was once trained by Chance in his previous life. Baptiste is a flawless assassin, leaving no evidence behind, acid burning off his victims' fingerprints, but also has a thing for wristwatches, believing they are the reflection of a man's soul. The squaring off of old adversaries is electric and immensely revealing to Chance's past and to the event that turned him into the man he is now. Chance's final job for his old boss was the awful woman named Catherine Walters, but it turned out to be both the pivot point where he switched sides and his first failure as Baptiste killed her. This episode is on exceptional form whenever Chance and Baptiste square off, using a heated standoff at a crowded subway station as a framing device for the story. James puts in a brilliant, captivating performance carrying all the weight of history and scoring kinship with Chance, while crafting a villain you absolutely want to see more of. It's a powerhouse episode that builds upon the threads the show has already laid out, and whets the appetite for revelations to come. Now the show's three leads play so very well off of one another, with excellent comedic chemistry and honest dramatic rapport. Mark Valley holds up Chance's armor very well, as he deflects many questions about himself with wit and class, but occasionally lets his guard down to share part of his soul. He's self-deprecating and easily disarming with charm to spare, and proves highly adept at any heightened scenario he comes across, creating a character an audience can easily warm to. His selfless heroism tinged with reflective moments wrap Chance up in a package that Valley is supremely apt to deliver with effortless style. Valley also performed most of his stunts on the show, not out of a need to do so, but from a desire to embrace the experience of playing an action hero. For example, a zipline stunt from Episode 4 Sanctuary, where Chance has to catch up to escaping bad guys on a gondola coming down from a mountain monastery, was performed by Valley. You can easily tell it's him in so many action scenarios, showing his commitment to the role and putting in the work week in and week out to have the show live up to its ambition. Furthermore, Jackie Earle Haley does an excellent job as Guerrero, highlighting a very freelance, loose mentality, but delivers on the deadly intent when necessary. As a fairly unassuming looking man, it's the casual, threatening tone in his portrayal that sells the character and his reputation. He's a guy using the skills of a bad man for the purpose of good. As such, Guerrero has a very unique way of going about protecting his friends, taking darker routes to weed out threats and cut them off at the head. Haley wonderfully balances the seedy shades of the character with a sharp-witted, chill confidence, calling everyone dude.
Alright, dude. Dude. Listen, dude. Dude. I got a problem, dude.
Hey, dude.
Hey. Hey, mate.
Hello, dude.
And Shine McBride's Laverne Winston is just a straight-laced, all-business ex-cop looking to do good outside the confines of the system. I have loved McBride in absolutely everything I've ever seen him in, and he slots in perfectly here. He provides weighty drama, forging earnest and loyal friendship with Chance that hints at their harrowing history together, but is also able to balance it out with clever humor. Winston is a serious, pragmatic man stuck in between these two guys who like to take these unconventional, wild risks. Guerrero especially grates on Winston as they're very much opposite mentalities. It creates superb comedy through personality conflicts, which builds character, camaraderie, and a history amongst these disparate individuals. Wry humor bounces off them so snappily, which makes Chance, Guerrero, and Winston entertaining and memorable characters to return to every week. Now, Season 1 had 2 recurring female guest stars. Most prominently was Emmanuel Viguier as FBI agent Emma Barnes. In Episode 3, Embassy Row, Chance gets her in hot water with the Bureau after an incident at a Russian embassy where they have to escape handcuffed together. And then there's Episode 8, Baptiste, where Chance teams up with her to stop the titular assassin. She proves to be a woman of great agency who can go toe-to-toe with Chance on both occasions, and plays very well off of Mark Valley. The friction stemming from the Russian embassy altercation makes for great banter when trying to head off Baptiste's assassination plot, especially as Chance derails apparently sultry first date for Barnes. It's some fun conflict that the show was very light on its feet with, and with Baptiste's capture, it does redeem Chance for leaving her high and dry in their first run-in, and closes off a 2-episode arc for Barnes. The other actress is Autumn Reese's Layla, a computer expert whose defense contractor employer Chance exposes as illegally selling arms in Episode 6, Lockdown, and joins Chance's team in Episode 8. She honestly seemed like a pretty promising fit for the team as maybe someone a bit naive towards the harder side of their work, which could have given her a nice interesting arc over time. Sadly, she never appears or gets mentioned again after the Baptiste episode. Yet in Lockdown, Chance infiltrates a high-security skyscraper to rescue a computer genius being held captive by that defense contractor. During that escape, Layla processes Chance's facial recognition, which triggers off an alert to someone, which Guerrero confirms was to their old boss. This later makes Chance subconsciously twitchy, going to Episode 9 Corner Man, where he maneuvers his way into an underground MMA tournament. He has to overcome his fears and trepidations in order to survive the Fight Club and bankrupt the crooked ringleader, played by Highlander of the series Peter Wingfield. Now in the season finale, we finally see Chance's past catch up to him, when the men who put out the hit on Catherine Walters siege Chance's place. Guerrero, Winston, and Chance are grilled by the interrogator, played by Timothy Robinson, who would later appear on Supernatural's Kane, the father of murder, in an equally intimidating performance. He grills them about the events that led to Catherine's death in order to retrieve a mysterious book that was lost at the same time. We see those events play out 6 years earlier, with a hit sanctioned by the old man, portrayed by Armando Sante. He took Mark Valley's character in at a young age, dubbing him Junior, as his heir apparent. Junior squeezes info out of a half-drunk police detective in Winston, under the guise of attorney Conrad Hall, to learn where Catherine is being held by the SFPD. However, upon meeting Catherine, portrayed by Angel's Amy Acker, Junior's conscience finally overrides everything he had been taught, when he realizes just how innocent she is. Catherine witnessed the murder and heard the dying man's final words, Leonore Fortier, but knows nothing condemnable. Baptiste is sent to finish the job by the old man, when even Guerrero is unable to pull the trigger. Junior then goes on the run, and quickly falls in love with Catherine, and ultimately turns to one man for help. That man, portrayed by the $6 Million Man's Lee Majors, is Christopher Chance, revealing that it's a moniker handed down throughout the decades to those wanting to protect others, when no one else can. This reveal is slightly hinted at in many episodes, but most pointedly foreshadowed in Baptiste, with Junior's adoption of the name being referred to as a knife twist to the old man. The Lee Major's Chance imparts some wisdom onto Junior, as well as some rules to live by to protect his charges, but regrets that he's probably too old to be of any use to Junior in the field anymore. Catherine and Junior eventually leave to try to solve the mystery of Leonore Fortier, knowing that Leonore is the name of a ship. Once at the shipping docks, Junior realizes it's 40A, a container number holding whatever secret everyone is after. This ultimately leads them to the aforementioned book, but Baptiste catches up to them. Junior makes the cardinal mistake of leaving Catherine behind on a speedboat, letting her out of his sight and unprotected. Baptiste triggers a bomb, and Catherine is killed at the explosion, as the elderly Chance dies trying to stop Baptiste. Chance asks Junior what he's going to do about it, and who he wants to be. Wallowing in regret, Junior is paid a visit by Winston, now resigned from the SFPD. They forge a bond to help save the next soul that crosses their paths, and when prompted for his name, Junior tells Winston,
"My name is Christopher Chance."
In the present day, the interrogator takes off with Winston to track down what he did with the book that splashed into the bay. The old man soon returns, saving Chance's life, and the two are forced to join up again to save Winston and retrieve the old man's book. Guerrero is left behind with a contingency plan and a cliffhanger that'll be waved off come season 2. Asante's character would never be seen again, the mystery of the book is never answered, and the larger storyline goes unresolved due to changes imposed by the Fox network and or Warner Brothers Television. It is an infuriating shame, because this is as excellent of a season finale as you can find, especially with the gradual building of lore that was done throughout the season, knowing this was where it was all leading towards from the beginning. I will critique that in flashbacks, Valley doesn't quite sell the internal moral conflict of Junior. You just see Valley in the same mode he's been in for most of the show, using this cover of Conrad Hall as charming and persuasive. Don't really see any of the lingering sinister motives or the burgeoning conscience that leads him to become Christopher Chance. The vulnerability and nuance isn't quite there to click it all into place. A prime example of this wavering between sociopathy and empathy would be Tom Cruise's hitman Vincent and Michael Mann's Collateral, showing a complex and subtle deconstruction of a previously apathetic psyche. So I absolutely loved this finale and all the promise it gave of a further revelatory and climactic payoff, and you still believe in Valley's Christopher Chance moving forward. Now, the visual effects for Season 1 were handled by Zoic Studios, who have credits on shows such as Firefly, Battlestar Galactica, The Walking Dead, and Game of Thrones. For a network primetime series of that era, they hold up alright, doing heavier lifting in several episodes, with extensive digital effects and green screen work, along with regular wire removal for stunt work throughout this season. Now, as Stargate Studios would take over for Season 2, worked on shows like Heroes, The Dead Zone, Hannibal, and 12 Monkeys, no reason was given for the changeover, but the effects work remains consistent with no noticeable difference between the two different companies. Season 1 of Human Target would be released on DVD and Blu-ray on September 21st, 2010, with a group commentary track on the pilot episode, deleted scenes, and a pair of behind-the-scenes featurettes. However, despite boasting an enhanced sound mix, the Blu-ray does not make use of lossless audio, and instead retains the DVD's Dolby Digital 5.1 audio tracks. Regardless, the surround sound mix still impresses, as the show strongly pushed a large-scale action film soundscape. Tremendously, Season 1's music was handled by the incredible Beer McCreary. Already known for his work on Battlestar Galactica and Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles, McCreary was gifted a 40 to 60 person live orchestra each week. He also earned his first ever Emmy Award nomination for Outstanding Main Theme Music. The opening title sequence, which is also Emmy nominated, reflects a watercolor version of a James Bond title sequence to excellent effect that primes the audience for the adventure to come. Now, the season finale score was performed by a 94-person orchestra, which, at the time, was the largest ever assembled for a TV series. Series creator Jonathan Steinberg was ambitious and wanted the show to sound larger than anything else on TV. Inspired by composers like Jerry Goldsmith, John Williams, and Alan Silvestri, McCreary embraced the challenge to craft a sweeping adventure score of this scale every single week. At the time, he believed the scale of orchestral score had fallen a bit by the wayside and wanted to reinvigorate the art of composing with that classic style. The effectiveness of John Williams' iconic music for Indiana Jones is referenced by Steinberg and McCreary for influencing these choices, as he wanted to capture that level of romanticism, suspense, and spectacle. This ambition gave the series the feel of a major action blockbuster every week, truly reflecting the impressive action set pieces and stunt choreography employed by the show. McCreary's work will receive a digital soundtrack release by Water Tower Records on October 8, 2010, with an expanded limited edition 3-CD La La Land Records release 2 weeks later. The Water Tower Records release is readily available on all major digital music streaming and purchase platforms. While the limited edition set is out of print, you might still be able to find it for reasonable prices on the secondhand market. However, Beer McCreary would not be asked back for the second season due to the cost of the expansive orchestra. Worse yet, changes would be forced upon the series, including replacing Jonathan Steinberg as showrunner with Matt Miller, known at the time for Chuck. Composer Tim Jones would also be brought in from Chuck to score the season and redo the main theme. Said redux, as well as Jones' focus on more rock and electronic-oriented scores, is severely inferior to McCreary's lush and sweeping orchestral work. Evident by the series' cancellation after Season 2, no soundtrack of Jones' work would ever be released, and this season would not be released on DVD or Blu-ray. Furthermore, Season 2 would not be as consistently available on VOD or streaming services as Season 1 would be. This may be due to music licensing issues, as Season 2 is wrought with random popular music needle drops throughout, a crutch that Steinberg blatantly intended to avoid with this series. However, at the time of producing this video, the full series is available for free on Tubi TV. Now, Season 2 premiered on November 17, 2010, to lower ratings than any episode of Season 1 at 6.59 million viewers, and subsequent episodes would draw even lower ratings. Only the final 3 episodes would draw a consistent uptick in viewership closer to Season 1's numbers. However, by then, the writing was likely on the wall. It is interesting to go back and get a clearer picture of the ups and downs of this season, as I had never gone back to it after its initial airing. So, let's see how it all unfolded. The Season 2 premiere, Il Sapucci, opens by skimming over the major plot beats of the Season 1 finale and its recap, and only deals with the recovery of the book from a safe deposit box by the interrogator. Amundsen's character gets shot and killed by Guerrero, while Chance defuses an explosive strapped to Winston. Again, the contents of the book are just said to be secrets, and it's quickly forgotten about after the opening sequence. Chance then absconds to Nepal to meditate and leave his life behind for the next 6 months. He's eventually tracked down by widow billionaire Il Sapucci, portrayed by Indira Varma, and her associate Pete, portrayed by Thibaut Penicat, in a one-off appearance. She wants Chance to suss out a threat to her life, which ends up being her own accountant, wanting to steal her late husband's money and investments for himself. He's ultimately thwarted, and Elsa is saved by Team Chance in a decent action climax. At the episode's end, Pucci becomes Chance's new benefactor to bankroll his work and team moving forward, and Indira Varma is established as a regular cast member from here on out. In the season premiere, we're also introduced to professional thief Ames, portrayed by Janet Montgomery. She's used as a patsy in an abduction plot against Elsa, but helps to redeem herself by joining Team Chance. She's regularly featured in a mostly comedic sidekick capacity with an affinity and respect for Guerrero. As a cop, Winston ran her in several times as a juvenile, and proves to be clever and resourceful with a decent set of skills to offer the team. However, she's not explored in very much depth, but has fine chemistry with the full cast. Clearly, there was an intention to expand the show's appeal by adding in some regular female cast members, but how well they're dealt with and integrated into the stories is a bit arguable in my regard. For instance, early on, Ilsa Pucci feels more like a hindrance to Team Chance in actually doing their jobs, despite providing them with more tech and resources than ever before. She becomes more of a drag on certain plots instead of adding or benefiting them. She questions the methods and choices of the team, needs exposition given to her that's already covered in Season 1, and hampers the well-oiled dynamics of the core trio. All this after she tells them she's going to be an absent benefactor, not interfering in their business, and she ends up being there all the time, looking over their shoulders. Indira Varma is not a bad actress by any means, but both her and the writing have a hard time clicking with the established cast and the premise of the show. Elsa does get better integrated into later plots, using her connections in high places to grease the wheels when the team gets thick into certain jams. Although her relationship with Chance develops to a point that definitely caused many objections for the remaining fan base. It is important to note that Chance's history is not forgotten about, as the old man is occasionally referenced, and his life as a hitman is dealt with as early as episode 2, The Wife's Tale. Chance works to safeguard the wife of a man he killed several years prior, trying to balance out the bad he once did. It's a solid episode with pertinent drama and character development for Chance, especially once his mark Rebecca Brooks learns of what he did. Chance is not let off the hook, and he doesn't try to break the illusion of the man she thought she was married to, despite him being a very bad man. Now, the apparent scaling back of the budget of the show and the new, less ambitious showrunner results in far fewer high-concept episodes, no bullet train murder plots, no treasure hunting romancing the sword adventures. It still has strong production values, good acting, and well-choreographed sequences, but the ideas are smaller in scale and less inventive. Thus, the show no longer feels like an action blockbuster each week. It feels like standard fare mediocre television. The action is just regular old shootouts, a couple of punch-ups. It lacks the innovative freshness that Jonathan Steinberg brought to Human Target that made it such an exciting breath of fresh air. For example, episode 3, Taking Ames, has, of course, Ames getting ensnared with her ex-con boyfriend into performing a diamond heist, and Chance has to go undercover with the boyfriend's gang to foil the heist. This is a plot I feel I've seen a dozen times on primetime TV and executed the same way each time. I honestly felt rather bored watching this one, as I felt very paint by numbers, which is something I never felt with Season 1. However, things look up with Episode 4, The Return of Baptiste. Chance recruits his sworn enemy from a Serbian prison to storm a compound of an old adversary, Cervantes, in the triple frontier of South America. This ends up being a mission to save Ilsa's journalist friend Susan, but all things go wrong as Chance and Baptiste get at each other's throats and are caught by Cervantes' men. Baptiste seemingly betrays Chance and gets in close to Cervantes, while Chance plots an amusing jailbreak with Susan. Meanwhile, Ilsa gets thrown uncomfortably into the field to charm an Air Force captain. This is to allow Winston and Guerrero to hack into his computer and get her private plane, Chance's only escape, released from military custody. It's a rare, strong episode for the season, mainly due to Lenny James' stellar return performance and chemistry with Mark Valley, creating a compelling dynamic. With the old man having abandoned him, Baptiste hashes out old business of loyalty and kinship with Chance. In the end, Baptiste turns on Cervantes, reclaims his own wristwatch from one of Cervantes' men, and escapes with Chance. The tables are cleverly turned back and forth, as they both know each other too well to not get one up on each other. It's a satisfying episode, seeing that some things from Season 1 haven't been jettisoned, and Baptiste clearly was a perfect adversary for Chance. Now, while this season would find points to flesh out its main characters, it often feels like a show running on network-mandated autopilot. It becomes harder to really care that much about Winston reconnecting with his ex-wife when the show lacks the heft and grit of Season 1. At times it seems Guerrero's edge has even been softened as well. While Haley's performance never falters, we don't regularly venture in the darkened corners of his world, he regularly shows up for staff meetings albeit in contempt, and the friction with Winston is rarely present anymore. And the series goes more overt with comedy in the Christmas episode The Other Side of the Mall, where Chance and company go undercover in the suburbs to protect an office whistleblower. It tries to be cute with it all, with Chance sitting in an office cubicle saying,
Literally in hell.
But the suburban domestic comedy is just as uninspired as you'd imagine. It feels like a waste for these characters and this cast to be settled with such bland material after excelling with such rich and compelling material in the first season. It's clear that the more that was changed with the show to broaden its appeal, the less of its identity it retained. Unfortunately, by the time the complaints started piling up from fans and critics, the entire season had likely already been shot and had no opportunity to alter its direction and rebound. However, we do get a stronger return to form, with Chance's South American love interest making a comeback in a problem like Maria. She ropes Chance into a plot in rescuing a man, Diego Garcia, from a dictator, Victor Escalante. Yet she deceives everyone, as she actually abducts Victor's brother Julio to force an exchange for Diego's life. What she also doesn't tell Chance up front is that Diego is actually her husband. All the while, she's led Chance on with a seeming rekindling of their old spark. Let's just say Chance does not take it well, and neither does Ilsa Pucci. Guerrero and Ames go to South America to barter the exchange with the fearsome Lopez brothers, but get captured instead, as Julio isn't as valuable as they thought. Instead, in actuality, Maria's the one of real value. A rescue is then mounted by Chance, Winston, and Maria with some dodgy digital explosions and a decent fight aboard a helicopter that kills Eladio Lopez. Although the ending is chaotic and a tad incoherent, robbing the action of a strong catharsis. Regardless, this feels much more like a Season 1 episode in many respects, similar to the return of Baptiste. Who would have thought that bringing back well-established characters who have excellent chemistry with Mark Valley to continue existing storylines would be a winning concept? Yet this would mark the beginning of a Christopher Chance, Ilsa Pucci romantic tension that would sear the final 6 episodes of the season. Now, Episode 8, Communication Breakdown, has a still-living Hector Lopez shooting down Ilsa's plane, with her, Chance, and the pilot on board, crash landing in a fiery heap. Meanwhile, Guerrero and Winston's friction sparks off again as they attempt to protect a friend of Chance's from a contingent of gun-toting bad guys ready to storm their building. Along with Ames, the group is eventually able to concoct a strategy to fight back and neutralize the threat. Yet even as Chance and Ilsa narrowly escape Hector Lopez and return to San Francisco, Lopez takes Ilsa hostage to lure Chance in order to exact revenge for the death of his brother. However, in his struggle, it's Ilsa who pulls the trigger and has to live with the consequences. It's another episode with some strength, gravitas, and wit to it that feels more like the show it used to be. These episodes aired back-to-back on Wednesday, January 5th, 2011, as it was handled as a 2-part story. Unfortunately, the attempts to spark off a romance between Chance and Ilsa become very prevalent moving forward, and with them fight and argue also having moments of heartfelt intimacy, but this relationship is no David Edison and Maddie Hayes from Moonlighting. Valley and Varma gel decently as co-stars from time to time, but they have no romantic chemistry together, making for an inorganic, lukewarm turn that's clearly supposed to be hot and heavy. This perception is reinforced as Chance starts losing his focus in the field, worrying about Ilsa, and making bad judgment calls in regards to her. It feels like a platonic work relationship that's forced into becoming a conflicted romance, to when they finally kiss in the penultimate episode, there are no sparks, and it feels utterly unconvincing. Many fans mark this as the worst element introduced this season, as it really soured the show for them. My memory had me thinking it was a season-long grading misfire, but the few episodes it does feature in do fall flat nonetheless. This stands out so much more after all the female guest stars Mark Valley had stellar chemistry with all throughout the first season. Some were romantic, some were adversarial, but all sparked off something with him to make the dynamics of each episode work wonderfully. Any one of them would have clicked better as an ongoing love interest for Chance, but showrunner Matt Miller seemed more interested in just checking the boxes of all the cliches of primetime network shows. Now, the 9th episode, Imbroglio, does prove to be another strongly executed story. An opera house of guests, including Ilsa and her sister-in-law Connie, are taken hostage by a group of armed men. The opera house provides them access to burrow in underneath a CIA safe house in order to jailbreak the leader's brother. Meanwhile, Chance and Guerrero work to thwart their plans, while Winston gets entangled with the FBI outside, who are called in by Connie Pucci. It's got enough clever turns and a brisk pace, with the right amount of repartee to be nicely entertaining. Although it lives an idea from The Dark Knight, where the innocent hostages are tied up in disguise to bait the SWAT team into killing the hostages. Although Guerrero is smart enough to find a way to ward them off, while Chance assaults the henchmen. Yet this episode earned the series its lowest rating ever, with 4.7 million viewers, airing back-to-back with episode 10, which shared nearly as low of a rating. Now, this dip in the ratings may have been due to a late move from Wednesday to Friday night in order to broadcast a memorial service for a tragedy that occurred in Tucson, Arizona on January 8, 2011. Now, episode 10, Cooley and Guerrero peeks under the shade of Jackie Earle Haley's character after he's framed for the murder of a childhood friend and is incarcerated by a corrupt warden played by James Reanmar in a blandly written stock role. In trying to get to the heart of why these crooked foes have set up Guerrero, the team break into his locker and personal briefcase. Amongst the answers to that question, they see that he's been spying on the entire team. In truth, it's his way of watching their backs from afar in his own shadowy way. This episode also hints at a son he keeps as a tightly held secret, but that element barely has any time to be grappled with this close to the end of the series. It's brought up almost passively in the finale, but this idea would have been better suited to be placed earlier in the season to allow this element of Guerrero to be expanded upon throughout other episodes. After that unexpected jump to Friday night, the 11th episode, Kill Bob, would then air on Monday, January 31st, with the final 2 episodes airing on successive Wednesdays. As stated earlier, the final 3 episodes earned a big spike in ratings, climbing from 7.75 to 9.22, but slipped down to 8.13 for the finale. The final 2 episodes aired directly after season 10 audition episodes of American Idol, which apparently gave them a solid lead-in. The final episode would air on February 9, 2011, ahead of its official cancellation on May 10th. Now, this season had one climactic arc, which starts off in episode 11, Kill Bob, and regards Ilsa's late husband, Marshall Pucci. Russian intelligence had encrypted files on Marshall, and a photograph that leads everyone to believe he had a mistress. Turns out the woman worked for the CIA, who were exploiting Marshall's company resources, and killed him before he could expose them. While the assassins played well with menacing twists, the rogue CIA agent in charge is a non-character, written as bland and as forgettable as possible. It's a terribly lacking finale with nothing interesting to offer. It reflects a lot of the failings of Season 2. Concepts that lack ambition, characters that don't get enough exploration, and storylines that are weakly conceived and executed with no inspiration. The show hung their concluding storyline on character that, more often than not, proved to be lacking in compelling qualities and was hitched to a romantic storyline that did not spark. It's a diametric opposite to Season 1's finale, which was full of rich exploration of character lore, and intriguing unraveling of mysteries, and a setup of a captivating hook designed to draw viewers in. I gave up on Season 2 before the final episode, and only just watched it for this retrospective after 14 years. I honestly found it boring. The show ended deflated of nearly every strength it had going for it. Season 1 showrunner Jonathan E. Steinberg would pen Communication Breakdown, as well as co-write The Return of Baptiste and The Trouble with Harry with co-producer Robert Levine, also a Season 1 scribe. Levine would also write Imbroglio, although no other Season 1 writers would be brought over to Season 2. Interestingly, many of the same directors worked on Season 1 and 2 with some exceptions, so most of the issues I've raised regarding Season 2 are conceptual. Ultimately, the writing was on the wall for Human Target early on in the season. Much of the season drew weaker ratings than Season 1, meaning all the concept softening did nothing to expand its appeal, and the cost cutting just took the legs out of everything special about it. Human Target honestly feels like a show ahead of its time. Years later, when streaming services were just throwing buckets of money at anything to draw a subscriber base, I feel they would have eaten up an ambitious vision like this. Now, when Human Target was given the axe, the excellent cop show The Chicago Code also got cancelled due to underperforming ratings. Now, great shows get cancelled, it happens, but too many shows I've loved on the Fox network got axed well before their time. This double shot of cancellations, in addition to what happened to Terminator the Sarah Connor Chronicles 2 years prior, just made me swear off Fox altogether after this. Although Christopher Chance would get one more live-action appearance to date, portrayed by Will Trevall in Arrow Season 5, Episode 5. Here Chance returns to the Master of Disguise concept as he impersonates Oliver Queen himself during an assassination attempt. Trevall would reprise the role in Arrow Season 6, Episode 21. Also, Mark Valley would appear in the Arrowverse as attorney Anton Slater, prosecuting Barry Allen on The Flash, Season 4. Valley would also get to voice DC Comics icon Superman in the animated film adaptation of Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns in 2013. Human Target also boasts a variety of notable guest stars, including Lethal Weapon's Danny Glover, The X-Files' William B. Davis and Mitch Pileggi, Supernatural's Samantha Ferris, Hawaii Five-O's Grace Park, Twin Peaks' Chris Mulkey, Moonblood Good of Terminator Salvation, the wonderfully smarmy Nick Chillen of Con Air and the Chronicles of Riddick, Dash Mihawk of Ray Donovan and Punisher Warzone, and acclaimed character actor Eric Avari, notably of Stargate and The Mummy. Human Target was a series that showed an exceptional amount of potential with its ambitious scale of action sequences, calculated unraveling of lore, compelling fun characters, and the lush music of Beer McCreary. This all broke the show out of the mold of primetime drama and action series, and had a clearly plotted first season that followed through on its promises. I don't know how much of sustained popularity the show has maintained 15 years since its cancellation, but I believe it deserves recognition and admiration for what Jonathan E. Steinberg shepherded forward here. He spearheaded a show that was maybe ahead of its time, but at least Season 1 has stood the test of time. Those episodes remain just as exciting and fun as they were when they first aired. Season 2 unfortunately showed how retooling a series can easily kneecap it, and before they realized what wasn't working, it was too late to revert to what did. Still, if you've never seen Human Target, I hope I fueled your interest to give it a watch, and for those that remember it well, I hope you'll share your thoughts on the show and its creative directions in the comments section below. So thanks so much for watching, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, thanks much, take care.